Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Tevis. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Welcome to the All Access Podcast. I am your host, Michael Thiessen. I welcome all of you to this particular episode where we're talking a little bit about the state of the industry that we're all in, and stating that our current manufacturing industry is kind of hurting, or that manufacturing is incredibly tough right now, I think is an understatement. We're trying to look into our crystal ball, but since I don't have one, I need to reach out to a person that is no stranger to you guys, and that potentially has the answers that we're all are looking for. And this particular person is a repeat guest. She's a good friend of our podcast, so we asked her to come back on again. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Laurie Harbour. She is in the industry for over 30 years. She is a well-respected individual dealing with the manufacturing industry, where we are looking at tons and tons of data day in, day out. And she's just passionate about what we do, and that's manufacturing, especially here in North America. So I'm incredibly excited to have Laurie back on again. Laurie, welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
Laurie, I guess I need to ask right up front, how is the industry right now doing? Where are we?
Well, manufacturing is as you said, in just a very difficult, challenging place right now. We had, a great sort of run as we came off of the pandemic, and demand was really good for manufactured goods. And now things are definitely slowed down, as a result of inflation and a lot of the interest rate challenges that are out there, supply chain challenges. I mean, there's just been, seems like one body blow after another, right? And so, our clients are saying that they're seeing anywhere between 10 and 30% reduction in 2023 over what they forecasted at the beginning of the year, whether that's tooling or molding or stamping. There are just lots of pressures in the industry. Some markets certainly doing better than others, but for the most part, a general softening across manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, coming out of the last 3 years out of COVID and dealing with what you said, the supply chain shortages and all that kind of stuff, do you think the last episode of these blows with the big three striking or the union striking had an additional effect on where we are right now?
There's no doubt about it. I mean, the union strike was something that, we had been talking to companies about getting prepared for and showing them some of the challenges that they may face. It ended up being, probably not as difficult from a production standpoint or shutdown standpoint as what it could have been, because it happened in these very spotty types of approach. However, the longer term effects are going to be substantial. The cost of wages, the pressure around the country for everyone's wages, and the precedents that it sets in our country as a challenge to our competitiveness across the globe. So it was definitely a body blow faced by many, and I think the longer term effects are what's going to be most significant.
So you kind of expect, or you kind of think that, obviously, I mean, from what I'm hearing too, it's now not just the big threes, that potentially other manufacturing bodies are looking at increasing these costs also. So now everybody increases these costs. The products become more expensive. That, again, the manufacturing industry looks at outside sources again, at looking at foreign sources.
Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line is that for the OEMs, that cost of increased wages has to be paid for by somebody. So whether it's the suppliers or whether it's the customer themselves, prices will go up for vehicles. But what's most concerning to me is that the president of UAW has been very clear that he's not stopping with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. So He's going after Toyota and Tesla and several of those automotive OEMs, but also he'll go after, suppliers and non-automotive large companies, the companies that some of them are already union, like in a John Deere or a Caterpillar, but he'll expand that. It's about membership now, and that will put pressure on wages everywhere, because if you've got an automotive plant next door and you can make $25 an hour versus 18 or 20, you're going to choose that. So it's absolutely a challenge that will cause us to look overseas again, and particularly for tooling, which, is that space that you and I love to play in. But it's a challenge, right?
Right. And we were doing so good over the last several years now on gaining momentum again to kind of get all this work back in the U.S. again. And of course, we're dealing with other issues such as finding talent and all that kind of stuff. But we were doing so good. And then this now happens again. What can we do in order to kind of level the playing field again? Is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, I wish I had the silver bullet answer on that one. I mean, it is very difficult. Companies have got to drive efficiency and throughput in their facility. They have to attack every aspect of waste in their business to drive out unnecessary cost and to be able to do more with the same. And, there's some companies who've done a great job at that, and there's others who have not done that very well at all. And so that's what allows people to struggle on the pricing side of the business, because they just have to cover the inefficiencies of their business. But it's a challenge across the board. We won't shut down everything that the foreign competition is going to bring to us. And, frankly, there's a real lack of commitment among the larger OEMs, not just in automotive, but the larger companies. Because of their investment, they have to manage capital. So they view overseas and low-cost countries as a way to offset some of the massive capital, especially as we invest in battery electric vehicle product and all the complexity in that. So yes, companies have things that they can do, and they better be doing, because, if they're not going to be around long term. But we still will have challenges that we won't be able to overcome from a cost standpoint. And that's when we got to sell our business on capability and why we're the best, why us over something else.
I know we have talked for a very long time already about that industries here in North America need to get on the bandwagon and automating as much as they possibly can. Because only if they do automation in terms of processes, not just by putting robots in their facility, but overall automation in the way how they operate. If that's by looking at MES solutions, if that's looking at and getting data from all of those kind of things, or automating their entire manufacturing process with standardization of their processes. Is that one of the solutions that they should be looking into? And is it too late for them now, or what's your thought?
No, it's definitely not too late. And absolutely, yes. I mean, there is huge opportunity to automate. In the labor crisis that we have today, if we're not thinking about automation, then we're already behind the ball game, right? And companies have got to start thinking about, what does automation mean to me? And it's not always, full robotization or things of that nature. It's, as you said, it could be an MES system somewhere. It could be, looking at some form of machine monitoring. It's automating, like the system that you have, right? The ability to automate some of that design and CAM programming, so that, by utilizing Tevis, because the more we can do through automation, the less labor we are going to need. And obviously we can't lose labor altogether, but we have to be thinking about, what does automation mean to us, from the simplest to the most complex, and then be able to drive that down our businesses. Those companies who are doing it and doing it well are absolutely winning the game.
Do you see, I mean, Tevis operates not just in the automotive sector, but we also operate in the aerospace sector too. And on the aerospace side, there is a lot of push. There's a lot of airplanes that need to be built. Obviously, the providing defense systems and all that kind of stuff that also falls into place. So there's a lot of manufacturing on that side of the spectrum happening. Do you see that some of the shops, the job shops, the mold makers, or maybe even the die makers are looking at alternative options and not just what they predominantly were doing beforehand, a lot of automotive work with the big threes, that now they're looking at somewhat diversifying and looking at other areas to kind of make up for some of the losses?
Absolutely. It's probably the number one largest request we've had this year is, hey, do a market study on other industries, or what's going on in, agriculture, or, hey, my business is near a Caterpillar facility. How do I get in there? So lots of people asking, as they've seen volumes drop that 10 to 30% I talked about, they're saying, okay, so how do we fill it with something else, right? And do I really want to be this dedicated to automotive, or do I want to be this dedicated to aerospace, or whatever your market is? And how do I flex? Like if I had a buck for everybody who said, tell me how to get into medical, I'd be loaded and I could retire. But, because the margins are good, but medical is a very challenging thing depending on what you produce. So sales process, sales market understanding, what opportunities are out there are definitely something that companies are focused on and interested in. It's just you don't walk in there very easily, right?
Have you seen companies that have done this and were successful and have stories to kind of tell, to do the do's and don'ts, or what have you seen already?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely some companies who have not exited, but reduced their dependency on certain industries and have grown in others and have had great successes with it, right? They've realized when they put a real plan together and they sit back and really hire the right people and put them in place to do the sales within those industries, they've been, wildly successful. I have several customers who have gotten into medical. I have some who have gotten into automotive that weren't in automotive before. So it definitely happens, but it just doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people think you can kind of, click your heels together and you're in a new market, and that just doesn't happen, right? You got to do the hard work to get there.
Exactly. I mean, if that trend is going, that some of these molders or die shops, job shops as well, are going towards other industry, if that is agricultural or medical, that could have some very negative effects too for the future of the automotive. Because if you can't find any more of the shops that can do this kind of work, or maybe if that trust factor with the automotive is no longer there, the loyalty kind of stuff, then all of a sudden it falls to the wayside, and then there's only one option for the automotive is to go overseas and manufacture it there. Do you see if that could potentially happen? Because obviously all the news that we're reading just recently, also Stellantis laying off another 50% of their salaried workers and all that kind of stuff that's going on. That is not good publicity for the automotive.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the biggest challenge that a lot of companies have in the non-automotive space is that they get all these people that come out of automotive and say, hey, I want to make tools for you, or I'd like to make parts for you. And then they'll give them some work. And then all of a sudden automotive will come back like gangbusters. And then they'll forget about those people. And, the appliance people are the most popular, right? They'll say, yeah, we gave auto people business and then it failed because, when auto came back, they went back to auto. So yeah, there's a lot of fear about, how does automotive find the right people, which unfortunately is where I believe a lot of the LCC regions of the world come into play, right? Is they say, look, I mean, the large OEMs are still telling me that there's no capacity for tooling in North America, which I, vehemently disagree with. There's a lot of capacity. But there's a lot of the stars alignment that has to come into play in order for that capacity to be available and ready for them when they need it without delays and so on and so on. Right. So it definitely puts pressure on the auto industry for sure.
Oh, absolutely. How about the electrification? I mean, I just came back from California from a 2-week stint down there, and it is amazing how many electric cars are operating in, at least in the area of California that I was at. I mean, of course, numerous Teslas, Lucids, and the list goes on and on. There was cars there that I haven't even heard before that I've seen on the street. Do you see more and more of these startup companies, these electric car companies now finally coming out? And it seems like every single month there's a new player, or at least there's another company that tries to attempt to get in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, there is multiple new entries into the market, lots of money from foreign countries and here in our own country that are looking to make this type of investment. A lot of capital backing associated with it. Like Amazon and Rivian and, Saudi Arabia investors in Lucid and things of that nature. So you've got a lot of money on people betting on that in the future. And some will make it and some will not make it. Right. And the challenge we have right now is that I believe battery electric vehicle has taken also a bit of a hit in these last couple of years. And in particular, this last year, you're seeing it all over, right? Elon Musk is delaying his Mexico facility because he believes the price of vehicles is too expensive. He's not wrong. They're ridiculously expensive, right? So he's not seeing adoption happen fast enough. We could enter a period of time in a year from now when we have a different administration that doesn't support the emission standards that have been put into place, and then that may slow things down. We don't have infrastructure. We still have expensive batteries. The OEMs that are traditional have to invest in both ICE product and BEV product to support their ability to even invest in BEV products. So those three companies just took a big hit. So I think the adoption's going to be slower than what the world or what, the people who want it to happen fast will see. They won't like it, but
could there be a room for, other opportunities to come in? Of course, reading Honda, Toyota, they're having other concepts that they're looking into with either hydrogen or other renewable energy. Is there some room left for maybe some of those ideas to come to market?
Absolutely. I think that hydrogen is probably going to be much more of the future. But I think it's going to take some time. I mean, the Japanese are certainly they've been looking at hydrogen for years, and I think they're continuing that path. There's lots of unknowns. There's lots of challenges to get the materials. All of this discussion of 40% of our production by the end of the decade would be battery electric, I'm struggling with because we just don't have the materials to do that. So there's a lot of things at play here that will affect our ability to adopt electric vehicles.
Right. Well, we'll have to see how that's all going to play out. Recently, you and I, we were at a convention together at the MEMA, and of course, just like every year, previous years OESA, this year MEMA. It's always an anticipation to kind of listen to you and people that come to these conventions, they really are interested to see what kind of data have you found, because you look at every single nook and cranny and you kind of have that crystal ball to see what's going to happen. This year at MEMA, you mentioned that it was probably the most difficult message that you had to give from all the messages that you had to give in the previous. Why was that?
Well, because I believe, we were focused talking about the tool industry, right? And in the last 3 years, we've lost about over $500 million worth of capacity among dye and mold shops in the North American region. So, and some very large shops that were making bumper fascias and instrument panels and, had 50, 70-ton cranes, right? Which we don't have a lot of capacity in our country for that. And when I look at what's happening in the economy and with inflation and with interest rates, and now these massively increasing wage rates, a tool maker has to essentially increase their wage rates to $35 to $40 an hour to be competitive at capturing talent. And if I have to raise my wage rates that much, there's a lot of labor in a tool, right? So now I become wildly uncompetitive to low-cost country regions. And I was already losing a lot of the work to low-cost country regions. And I'm just not seeing the commitment level among the OEMs to truly invest in our tool making industry here, keep the tooling here, capture the ideas and the opportunities of the skill sets that are here. We're just kind of going by price, and we're going to these other regions of the world. And without that commitment, I think we're going to lose more shops. And, these are family owned small businesses, people who, don't maybe have a great succession plan. And so, some of them that have closed have just said, I don't want to fight the fight anymore. And they just close their doors. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned earlier, too, with this entire capturing of talent, and then you have to increase their wages. And of course, a business owner always looks at the outcome and saying, okay, so if I can pay X amount of money for this particular talent or this individual is going to pay me back because of his capabilities. But if the talent market in such a way is so that there's not a lot of experts out there anymore. There's not a lot of talent out there, and you have to almost grow the talent from the ground up. This all takes time, and it all takes just a lot of hard work to get to this. Is there time to do this? To train from within?
There is some time to do that because you've got some very smart young people. The problem is we have to attract them into this market. And when you're now competing with companies that are paying really well, some people say, I'm not sure I want to work that hard in tooling, or, I just am maybe not attracted to the manufacturing space when I could go work at Amazon or something of that nature. So I think it's a real challenge to find the talent in this new economy and in this age of this new demographic of people who want something very different. And I just believe that over time, this is becoming a bit of a dying industry.
What can we do to attract, though? Obviously, you can put a lot of paint on and all that kind of stuff and do a song and dance to get people attracted. But what do these young talents or maybe talents that have switched industries, and how can we get those guys back again? What do we need to do? Is there a global effort or bigger effort from maybe an administration on down, or each individual shop needs to figure out what is that song and dance in order to attract?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to come from any administration. The administration has pretty much said the tooling industry is too small of an industry for them to fight the battle. So it really becomes a plant by plant, company by company basis. And I've seen it happen. There's a lot of companies who are really painting the picture and helping people understand, these are great careers. These are people who don't have to go and get a university degree. They can come in, they can quickly make good money. They can work overtime. You get a lot of people making well into the six figures, making tools. And what's interesting to me about it is we don't promote enough of the technology, right? Technology like Tebas software, technology like, these CNC machines and the automation that runs them. The younger generation wants to be able to run, highly sophisticated software and machines. They like technology. We need to promote that because there's no place that there's more technology in programming and design than what you see in tooling. So it's a shame. We got to get out really young and get these kids before they even get into high school and start to show them these careers and their parents.
Well, I mean, I was down at West Tech just recently in California, and I remember still 20 odd years ago, West Tech was huge. I mean, every trade show was huge, and there was just a lot of people usually there. This year, it was not a bad show, but the one thing that I saw, there was just every single day, numerous schools showed up and had them walk through the halls and kind of see what's there. And I think it's really great that schools do this, but I just don't see the spark in the kids' eyes, or the interest level and all that kind of stuff, or just simply the wow factor when they're walking by this incredible machine that could do X, Y, Z, or the software that has these beautiful models that they've machined on. There's just not that wow factor. How can we get that in this younger generation to realize that, look, everything that you touch nowadays has to be manufactured? Aren't you interested how this is being done? And that's one of those things that I just did not see. And I actually had a conversation with one of the individuals down there. I think it's great that schools do this, but how can we get this into our kids again, that they walk around with their eyes wide open and just capture? I'm not saying that there's not a kid out there that doesn't have that level of interest, but just looking at the hundreds and hundreds of kids that walk in, that we can get this wow factor back to them again.
Yeah, it's a very difficult challenge. I mean, I agree with you. I've been to a lot of trade shows. The other thing is trade shows are not doing well because people, this generation doesn't necessarily love to get out and mix and mingle, right? I mean, our generation is very different. We like to meet and talk to people, right? So it's a very different environment, and they think differently. And so I personally have been working that challenge for years and trying to get people excited about it and show them the technology. When I go to plants, sometimes they don't even show their employees where their parts end up or where their tools end up, right? And some people really like to know, hey, I made a tool that saved somebody's life, right? And in the medical industry or something like that, or an airbag, or, so it's a very difficult challenge. And we as a manufacturing collection of the whole have got to do a better job. I mean, I have a million ideas, but I'm only one person, right? And there's a lot to tackle. Companies have to do this day by day, person by person.
And I think you're right. It has to start early. I mean, I grew up on these little metal boxes where you manufacture something with little screws and all these gizmos, and you made cranes and all that kind of stuff. I don't see that kind of level anymore. I mean, everything now is electronic. That's what kids do nowadays. That they spend numerous hours on their computers and are whiz kids when it comes to the digital displays. But a lot of the hands-on, or the feeling proud of when you've manufactured something, that is, I no longer see that. I mean, I see this with my own kids too, that it's all digital now.
Yeah, for sure. And this generation also does not like inefficiency. So, let's talk about tool making, for example. Like, how many times have you been in a shop where somebody uses your software and a beautiful Makino 5-axis machine, and the older generation doesn't let them utilize the software and the technology of the machine the way that it could to solve the problem, because they want to touch it, massage it, and make sure that, they feel like they've got to have a hand on the tool. And this next generation doesn't want to do that. They're like, you just bought me this really great machine and this great seat of software. Why don't I use it for what it's capable of doing, right? And they don't like waste and they don't like rework. They want to get in, do their thing, and get out. And so, we have to find ways to allow empower this younger generation to help us be better.
So we're coming up to the end of the year. I mean, 2023 is very soon to be in the books. We're going into 24. What do you think is coming up? What will we see 24, maybe 25 going into 26?
I think 24 is going to be another relatively slow demand year. I think, everybody talks about we're in this massive recession. I mean, we're technically, by the numbers, not in a recession. And most of the numbers are indicating that we won't be in a recession. Obviously, it's soft, and people are feeling that softness. But there's a difference between softness, of course, and recession. But I just think you're going to see sort of moderate volumes. But I do think you're going to start to see things pick up again as we get into 25 and 26. There will certainly be a lot of new products launched in the mid part of the year and then into the balance of the decade. Lots of new vehicles coming, lots of new appliances, and other industry type of goods and services. But I do think that it's not like the last few years of the pandemic, post-pandemic, huge demand kind of thing.
Right. I mean, I think we always see a little bit when it's an election year, every 4 years, that there's just a little bit of a slowing down, or you actually had a word during MEMA. It's just kind of hunker down and kind of do that. Is that what kind of like the word should be for a lot of the shops? It's just kind of look at their own operations, see what works, what doesn't work, and just kind of hold on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is going to be a very difficult year of election, jargon throughout the universe. And I'm not, for me, one way or another, whoever gets into office, the challenges are the same. We have, inflation, we have high interest rates, we have global unrest. People are afraid to invest in new equipment and new business because, there's a lot going on globally and there's a lot of high interest rates. So we're going to see a period of just kind of wait and see. And for us, people have got to really hunker down on their business, know every aspect of your income statement, know where the waste is, get rid of that waste, find ways to consistently improve, find ways to, retain the best talent and train them and keep them motivated and excited. And then, as you said earlier, go after new sales. I mean, we've got to sell, right?
Well, hunker down doesn't mean directly just don't do anything.
Right.
Look at the stuff that works, figure out what doesn't work, get rid of the stuff that doesn't work, and invest in solutions that can push your company out front.
That's correct. I mean, we have to consistently be working on our business in a way that allows us to make good fiscal decisions, but also don't sit and do nothing, right? We still have to invest. We've got to stay up on technology. Otherwise, we fall way behind. And the rest of the world is not sitting back, right? I mean, they're continuing to push forward.
Well, and this is by keeping the manufacturing, at least on the U.S. side, that's exactly what we need to do. And our manufacturers, I think they're all smart. They want to do this, and they need to have the right advisors or the right information in front of them. I mean, just this last week in California, I went to a client, I've never heard of us before. And he kind of gave me the what for before I even opened up my mouth, because of course salespeople are supposed to have this kind of shady kind of thing going on, that they're these used car salesmen, no pun intended there. But after he saw what we had to offer to him, he was like, "Wow, this is incredible. Why haven't I seen this before?" And those are the kind of things that once they see and open up their eyes to different items in their business of what could be done better, this is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to find, we as people who are in that sales role also have to find new and unique ways to present those value adds to the customer, right? The way of selling before is not the same as, it's the way we're going to sell now is not the same as the way it used to be.
The world has changed, that's for sure.
Right, that's right.
So, Laurie, I got to ask, you let the cat out of the bag at MEMA. You talked about an adventure that you're doing right now with your business partner, and that's coming out with a book. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Scott Walton and I have been working for the last sort of year and a half on developing this book that we're putting out. It's really a leadership book, but it's a lot about this sort of hunkering down. And most importantly, it's about the labor piece. How do we take the incredible tribal knowledge and experience of the manufacturing generation of our time and link it with these incredibly smart younger generation of workers who have these new ideas and are technology driven and want to automate. And how, we're losing a massive portion of our manufacturing base with the baby boomers and the Xers leaving this, in the next 10 to 20 years. We can't lose that tribal knowledge. If we lose that tribal knowledge, we're handing ourselves over to low-cost countries. So we have to find ways to take that knowledge and then bring in the younger people, trust them, empower them, teach them, and then also let them teach us. What can we do differently? And so, we kind of talk about, how do we hunker down? How do we link the skill levels? And how do we save manufacturing in this country so that we are still, a force to be reckoned with in the world and making pieces and parts for everything from, people's parts that go into saving lives to vehicles to, fun things we do like getting on airplanes to travel.
Right. I mean, it sounds an exciting book. It's almost like a self-help book that you have to read to kind of see how can I get out of this situation that we're currently are in.
Well, yeah. And also it has different, one of the biggest struggles we had when we wrote it is, how do you write it for the top performing company versus the guy who is, about ready to go out of business because he's bankrupt. There's the entry point into how you fix your business is different for everyone. And those top performers have to know, how do I take it to the next level? And those who are struggling need to know, where do I start? If I'm struggling, I don't sit down and create some big hairy strategy. I got to go stop the bleeding and cut costs and do those things I need to. So it really is about, how do you stack up today? And based on how you stack up, what should you go do to be better?
Right. So when will it be out and where can people get it?
It will be out, I believe, in the third week of January. It will be available on Amazon and Books A Million and a couple other bookstores. Probably the best place is Amazon, since it's where most of us shop. It's actually on Amazon today for pre-sale, and it's called Tradition Meets Transformation. So it's out there and ready, and so we should be having books delivered here shortly.
Awesome. Great news. Hopefully the future will have even better news with the book now coming out and giving everybody this hope of what's coming up and what they can change in their business and their lives. Laurie, since we're coming to the end here, any final thoughts, any tips of advice from yours to all the manufacturers out there, what they can do and potentially change their course of direction?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is that we need companies to look inside of themselves and understand where they are, and they have to take seriously fixing the things that they control. As opposed to, we talk about this thing called the accountability ladder, which is, the people who are at the bottom of the ladder are those who tend to complain about everything else that they don't control, the economy, China, my customer, instead of those who are real top performers sit at what we call the top of the accountability ladder saying, hey, what do we do to get better? And, hey, that was a body blow, but what can we do to fix it, right? Are constantly proactively looking at how to control what they control. So instead of, sort of the negative nature of some of these companies, if we can drive positivity in our business and tackle those things that we can control, do everything in our power, that's going to make us more competitive, whether we believe that or not. It will make us more competitive. We've seen it. And then there's other things that we just can't control. And then maybe that's not a product I go after or a RFQ that I quote on. So we really have to look internal. It's no different than sort of looking at your own self and figuring out, how do I, lose weight, or how do I eat better, those kinds of things. So there's a lot. I'm still very, very bullish about manufacturing. There's a lot of great things happening. The automotive industry will rebound. We will sell more cars and so on and so on. We're just in one of those soft periods, and we've got to hunker down and manage what we can control and drive positivity and problem solving in our organization.
Right. Well, great advice. Laurie, as always, thank you for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate all your insight and your knowledge and your forecasting. And thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was great to talk with you.
Thank you. Well, you heard it here first. A couple of takeaways: hunker down, look at what works, what doesn't work, look at your talent, see how you can get your talent to a level that they're really getting you the benefit. Look at automating your environment, and don't let the environment take you down. Control the controllables. Look at your own company. Look what you can do. Look at other areas. Maybe if you're running into this situation, look at medical, look at agriculture, aerospace industry, and see what is in the future of you. I know we're going to get out of this. Laurie said it here too. Manufacturing is here to stay. It's up to us what we're going to do out of it and what we're going to make out of it. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts about this particular topic, or you want to hear more about this, contact us at marketing@tebisusa.com. We always appreciate you, and we thank you for listening. With that said, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebis's capabilities, visit our website at Tebis. That's TEBIS.com.